You're watching Agenda. Time to bring in our panel of political strategists this Monday afternoon. Grahame Morris here with me in the studio, Bruce Hawker in the News Centre. Welcome to you both. We've just received in a statement from ISIL that the Prime Minister's office says it is regarded as genuine. It calls for attacks on a number of members of the international coalition, including Australians. Let me show you exactly what they've said. This is the quote, the call out from an Islamic State leader. If you can kill a disbelieving American or European, especially the spiteful and filthy French, or an Australian or a Canadian or any other disbeliever from the disbelievers waging war, including the citizens of the countries that entered into a coalition against the Islamic State, kill him in any manner or way, however it may be. And that's from Al-Adnani, who is one of the leaders, as I say, of Islamic State. Grahame, the fact that Australia is mentioned there, along with Canadians, Americans, Europeans and the spiteful and filthy French, does that in any way suggest we are now an increased target due to our involvement in that coalition?
Well, I don't know about increased, David. When you look at what they've done lately, is behead people in various parts of the world, but particularly in Iraq, and innocent people. And then, our own security people discovered that they wanted to pull people off Pitt Street in the middle of Sydney and have a show beheading. This is just, one extra thing that shows why one has to take action against these religious zealots. And what's the alternative? The alternative that we just sit by and watch things happen. We see an entire communities and two countries destroyed. And then what? What sort of regime would this crowd ever run? And the idea that they just stop in bits of Syria and bits of Iraq is just unreal. And I do think our Prime Minister is doing the right thing. Does this escalate things or not? Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure how you can be.
No, it's certain of that.
How they can be more dangerous.
Bruce, presumably this is exactly the sort of stuff that was allegedly privately said to followers of Islamic State that led to some of those raids last week that we saw.
I suspect it was, and I think this is the price you potentially pay by standing up to these thugs. And that's what I think Australia is doing. It's accepting that, we will be more likely to be targeted. That's why we're having this increased security awareness right now, because we are prepared to go in there and take them on. They're not actually making those threats against countries that aren't part of the force. They're they're attacking countries who are prepared to go in there and do those things. So I've assumed.
But should that stop us doing that?
No.
I think the answer is no.
No, absolutely not. And I've always assumed, and I think most people have assumed, that by putting ourselves forward, we are prepared to accept some of that risk, and hopefully it'll never come to anything. But you do have to have some increased security as a result of stepping forward in this way, because they're such mongrels.
I do think what this shows, though, that this appeal to kill is, and we've been saying it on this program for a while, that it's very important for the moderate Muslim leaders in this country to come out and explain some things. And lately they've started to do it, and I think this is fantastic. If they just sit there and let this sort of stuff dominate, we will have some problems in Australia.
But I mean, why should they? In one sense, I mean, as Tony Abbott keeps saying, this isn't about religion. This organisation doesn't represent.
But it is about common sense, and it is about what Australians basically believe. And if they see too much of this stuff, we will have internal division in this country. And that's why I think some of these moderate Muslim leaders have been terrific in recent times, just to calm things down and to explain the difference between decent people and not. And even lately the burqa has come up. And it can't be too hard for people, moderate leaders, to explain to Australians why the burqa is important to some people. It's not all that long ago I saw one of the most notorious Australian Muslims at Wet n Wild. in Queensland, you know, or slippery dips and water everywhere. And the father and the sons are there in little black shorts and gold jewellery and everything. But the wife and the daughters and whatnot in the water are in full burqas. Now there's probably a good reason, but there are lots of things like that that I think people need to explain to Australians because at the moment many of us don't understand it.
The shadow of the 2003 Iraq War hangs over some of this, well, in the minds of a lot of people as they contemplate what we're doing. We heard John Howard last night, Grahame, your old boss, talking about his embarrassment that no weapons of mass destruction were found there. He reflected on a number of things actually in that interview, including some regret over an incident where he wore a bulletproof vest after the Port Arthur shooting and that rally that he addressed at Sale. Grahame, he put you in it, said he did so because you had told him. What did you say to him? That what am I going to say to Jeanette?
It's the same sort of thing. You know, you have intelligence from the federal police, and they say, "Look, Prime Minister, we've never had a threat against you like this. And if you get out of that plane and go to the Sale showground unprotected, we cannot guarantee your safety." And the Prime Minister just wouldn't hear of it. And they said, "You've got to wear this vest." And he said, "Look, this is Australia. I'm not wearing the silly bloody vest." And then the police came to me and they said, "Grahame, you've got to convince him to wear this because this is a really, really serious threat." And in the end, I said to him, "Look, I have no idea, given this, I've just been advised, what I would say to Jeanette, your wife, and your family if you went out there without the vest and something happened. I just don't know, PM, what I would say." And he wore it, and we've both regretted it ever since.
Any sympathy there, Bruce? You got to follow what the advisors are saying, I suppose, the national security experts.
Exactly, and of course they always blame the personal advisors as well. So nothing ever changes in this game. They take the credit for the good things, and they blame the advisors when it all goes wrong.
What about that? The real issues about the Iraq War in 2003. The WMD wasn't there. The intelligence was wrong. Bruce, do you think this is a big issue in the minds of a lot of people now, or are we talking about something very, very different?
I think it's very old, that for a start. I think it has plagued a lot of people. Tony Blair, for example, was rather badly tarnished as a result of accepting that advice. Look, I think that's all past us now, and I don't think there are real correlations between what happened there and now. I mean, it's now we're talking about an imminent threat to the government of Iraq, and there is a requirement that people of nations of goodwill step in, and hopefully, of course, they will get nations from within the Middle East to start really lifting their weight too, because at the end of the day, that's what
would be the big difference.
That would be the big difference, and I don't think America and Australia and Britain can keep on going being the policeman forever in the Middle East. At some stage, other nations within the Middle East have got to actually step up and make a real stand on these issues. Easier said than done, of course, but that I think ultimately is the way out of this conflagration in a matter of months or probably years when the Middle Eastern nations step in.
Yeah, it's going to be some time from all that we're hearing from the Prime Minister and others. We're out of time though this afternoon. Bruce Hawker, Grahame Morris, we'll catch up with you both next week. Thanks for that. We'll take a break. Back with more on PM Agenda. Stay with us.